Hi, everybody. So we are from, yeah, we can do that also. Is that working? Yeah. Hi, everybody. Delighted to be here. We are from INSEAD, the business school. And,
for the world.
For the world, thank you. That's the boss, so I need to learn my tagline. And Francisco, our dean, is going to explain to you why is INSEAD here in the NDG tent and what we're going to do today.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Catel. Delighted to be here with you to showcase our commitment to be at the forefront of innovation in business education. And this is not just today. This is something that, as a leading business school, we've always spent a lot of time thinking about how do we make sure that we, do our business education, that we do the best at what we are, which is, bringing, the people together and getting them through a learning journey that is transformative. And what we know is that, leveraging technology in a way that can help that learning journey is and can be part of that transformation. And this is something that we do and that we've been doing throughout our journey. That's why, for example, a few years ago, we've been at the forefront of simulations and bringing kind of gamification to the way that we think about business education. This is why we have the Learning Hub, kind of like a more kind of in your fingertips approach and access to learning, and why many of our faculty members are already kind of like bringing AI to the classroom and thinking about how is that shaping the future of education. But here today we are to talk to you also about one of the other important learning innovations that we've been pushing forward, which is to leverage VR for learning purposes. And what we've been learning through that is that this creates a very different imprint. So when we think about why are we doing this, why we want to explore that, and you'll have in a moment an opportunity to do so, is that we know that through these types of tools you can get two things. One is you can get teleported to a full environment in which you would not normally be and you would not normally explore, or you would do it at great costs and great carbon footprints often. That's one very important element that transports you into that environment. The second one is that we know, and actually there have been a variety of studies that have been supporting that through this type of technology, something that is very important for us as educators, which is your learning journey, can be significantly impacted through this immersive environment. Because what we care as educators is not that we're here lecturing to you, is what retains, what you keep, how it helps your decision making, your understanding, your engagement with the problem. Because if you attend a lecture and then 1 week or 2 weeks later you don't remember anything, it didn't have any impact on you, then you're not learning and we're not having any impact on you. And this is the other aspect that is very important about these tools, is the ability to really have impact in your understanding of the phenomena, of the issue, of the concept, of the tools that we're trying to transmit. And the other one, which we're going to explore less here, is also about many instances of business education where the 3D awareness is absolutely critical. So for example, if you're thinking about a boardroom, if you're thinking about an exchange in a 3D environment where who you look to, how you look to, and how you engage, and how others engage, has a very important, 3D component, it's very, very hard to transmit that through a 2D platform. And so in many, many instances, in terms of business education, where that 3D environment makes a difference, then these tools can also make a difference to your learning environment. But what we're going to do today here is to do that in terms of, your connection and our connection to the sustainability environment. Because what we will explore, and Amitava Chattopadhyay, one of our faculty members, will explain in a moment, is thinking about what you can do in terms of reflecting and organizing and deciding around supply chains, and to do that in a sustainable way can have a huge impact in communities and can make a difference between the way that that community is operating in a sustainable or in an unsustainable way, and then bringing that up into your role as decision makers and the way that you think about sustainability in your own supply chains. So what we're going to do today, and that's why we are here in the SDG tent, is to not only get you acquainted and to have an experience of using this technology, but to do that, of course, related to what brings us together in this tent, which is sustainability, which is promoting a different way to think about business and a different way to do decisions. And this is important for the world, and is also important for us, the Business School for the World. And we've been making a very significant commitment into sustainability, through our Hoffman Global Institute for Business and Society, and more important and more visibly this year, our complete rehaul of our curriculum to include sustainability across all our core courses and our capstone projects. Is part of our long-standing commitment to be at the forefront of also how do we educate the current and next generation of leaders for transformation and certainly for a more sustainable world. So thank you very much for coming. Delighted to be here. Amitabha, handing it over to you to continue and get on to the specifics of what we're about to do today. Thank you.
Thank you, Francisco. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me, or do I need to use the mic? Okay, you want me to use the mic. All right, perfect. All right. So, good afternoon. It's an honor to be here, and I'm delighted to see so many of you attending the session. Welcome to this session, which focuses on how do we transform a CSR program into a sustainable and strategic supply chain. What I'm going to do today is spend a few more minutes sort of elaborating a little bit on the things that Francisco said about why VR. And then I'd like to give you the proof of the pudding, if you will, by letting you jump into a VR experience. And then we'll have a panel discussion where Mr. Johan Westman, the CEO of AAK, will join me, and my colleague Catel will be the moderator. So the Kolo Nafaso program was developed by AAK, and as we'll see, it's quite an intriguing and impactful project. All right. So if we think about education, and depending on your age, when you started out in school, you had one of these experiences. I'm old enough that, when I started, there was somebody in front of a blackboard with a chalk and writing stuff and, talking to us. And things have changed. We've had overhead projectors, the PowerPoint presentations, et cetera, et cetera. But one thing that hasn't changed in all of this is that the learner is in a passive mode. He or she receives information that's given by an expert who speaks to us. And what we do know is that in such situations, what we take away isn't a great deal, particularly if we allow a week or two to pass by. So there has been, and as we talked about, there are simulations and cases that have been used that are more participative in nature or active learning. And when you think about active learning, probably the dominant form of active learning today is the case method, where we read the learner reads a written document. Can be anywhere from a few pages to as long as 30 pages. They are exposed to a dilemma or dilemmas where, from the perspective of the protagonist or multiple protagonists. And then they come back to a classroom where there's a discussion of how do we solve the dilemmas. And this improves learning considerably, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. And this is where I think VR comes in. So if you think about VR, it's multisensory and engaging. When you put on the VR headsets, as you'll see, you're completely immersed in this world. And most importantly, you take the perspective of the protagonist. You are there instead of being told, think about being Jane or Jack, as the case may be, but you are there. Okay, and I think that makes an enormous difference in how we learn. Secondly, it allows us to do innovative things like create independent learning paths for different people. So in a case discussion in a classroom, often we put people into different roles, but they've read the whole story. But here, through VR, we can create learning paths which mean that the individual has a specific perspective arriving at the discussion point. And I think that changes things considerably, as we'll see. And finally, we can capture real-time analytics, which can be used to generate insights or to even do research. So I think that puts us in a stronger position to deliver the learning that we are interested in. And there's data to suggest that we learn faster, that we are better able to apply that to our decision making. So let's jump into the Kolo Nafaso experience. The project is about shea. Shea is an agroforestry product, which means that it's not farmed. The shea tree grows in the wild in West Africa between the equator and the Tropic of Cancer. And the top 8 producing countries are on that list that you can see on the right. And AAK is one of the biggest buyers of shea in the world. And today we're going to go to Ghana to see what AAK has been doing there. And before that, let me kind of give you a thumbnail overview of what happens in this business. So there are about 4 million women who live in West Africa in the shea growing regions. And when the shea fruit ripens, they go into the parklands surrounding their villages and they collect the shea fruit that drops to the ground. Having picked it up, they do some basic processing, and we'll see what that basic processing is. They keep some of it for themselves because they use it as a cooking medium, and then they use it for skincare. And then they sell the balance to middlemen at the village who sell it to bigger middlemen, and so on and so forth through multiple steps till it arrives at the trading hubs in Ghana. That's Tamale in northern Ghana. And this is where organizations like AAK buy very large quantities of shea, which they then ship to Europe, where it's processed. And then the derivatives that are generated are sold to companies in the food and the cosmetics industry, who then use it for their products, which is then put into the retail or the food service chain to reach end consumers. Okay? So AAK, the company that's developed this program that we're going to talk about, and Experience is a B2B company, to be very clear. So they sell to large corporations in the food and cosmetics industry, and 90% of shea products go into the food industry. Okay? All right. So as we get into the Kolo Nafaso experience, what I would like you to do is to take the position of the sustainability manager at AAK. Okay? That's your goal here. And you'll be immersed in 3 VR experiences. At the end of each VR experience, we'll do a little debrief to kind of give you a flavor of what happens at an INSEAD classroom. And then we'll end with a wrap-up. Okay? So the messages that I would like to leave you with, and the message that, the top line message that I like to leave the learners at INSEAD with is twofold. First of all, sustainability is a huge word. Okay? It means different things to different organizations and people. So for some people, it could mean human rights. For somebody else, it's the carbon footprint. For somebody else, it's water. For somebody else, it's poverty alleviation. Or women's empowerment, and we could keep going, okay? And so to transform a CSR project into a strategic supply chain program, what you really need is the ability to understand what are the material priorities of your customers. What really rocks their boat when they think about sustainability? Build those into your program, and then engage with them. And actually, as you'll see with the Kolo Nafaso experience, you can actually bring them in to participate in your transformative experience, because it helps your customers to burnish their sustainability credentials by doing that. And so you create a winning cycle that's quite exciting. So we're going to get started. We're going to watch a video that will give you an overview of what to do. Don't yet pick up your headsets. And we're going to do that once you've watched this video together so you know what to do. All right.
Welcome to INSEAD Immersive Learning. You are about to embark on your learning journey. Before we begin, let's learn how to use the device. This is your VR headset. There are 3 buttons on the right side of the headset. We will be using the large middle one to navigate through the experience. This is the confirm button. If you need to adjust the volume, you will find the controls on the bottom left of the headset. This is the power button. You will not need to use this button during the session. In a moment, you will put your headset on. Place your earphones around your neck. Then put your headset on, and only then put on your earphones. If you're at home or learning alone, earphones are optional. Adjust the position of the headset on your eyes to sharpen the image. Adjust the straps of the headset if it feels too loose or too tight. If you need your glasses to watch TV, then you'll need them for VR too. If you are wearing reading glasses, you can take them off before putting on the headset. After putting on the headset, you will see a blue dot in front of you. The function of this dot is similar to a mouse cursor. You can control it by moving your head to a specific location and clicking the confirm button on the headset. Once you put on your headset, you will see one of 2 screens, the INSEAD XR welcome screen or the session standby screen. Keep your headset on and wait for the professor to start the experience. If you can't see the menu or the display is not aligned, just look straight and press the home button for 2 seconds. This will centralize the display. If you experience difficulties at any stage, please take off your headset and raise your hand. We hope you enjoy your immersive learning experience.
All right, so if you can take the headsets that are below your seat and the earphones. Then this is the white button that is the confirm button, and then you've got the volume button here at the bottom. And then if you have any issues with the focus, this is the button to press down for a couple of seconds. Okay? If you wear glasses for watching TV, please wear them. If you're wearing reading glasses for some reason, please take them off, because that's not something we want you to do. Okay, I see that you've put the earphones around your neck. Now put the headsets on once you've got the earphones, because first the earphones around your neck. Yep. Around your neck. Now headphones on. Okay. Adjust it so you all have a comfortable fit. Once.
2 minutes for everybody to join, and then we will start. Enjoy the view. It looks somewhat like Davos. Just look around. You can put your earphones on.
Earphones first.
2024, you're in the right place. We're just waiting for the last people to join us.
And then once you've got your headphones nicely adjusted, put the earphones on. And if you have a clear view, all good. If not, please raise your hand. All right, I see that everybody seems to have their headsets on. And we're going to Ghana now. welcome back to Davos. So, it's a little different, right? All right. So, at this stage, the typical INSEAD learning context, what we would do is ask the question, what are the key steps undertaken by the Shea collectors? Because if we're going to try and develop a program that's going to impact their lives, we need to understand how the Shea collection and their lives kind of intertwine. And so maybe I'll put you in the shoes of some of our learners and ask you, what are some of the key steps that you saw and experienced in the clip that you just saw? Yep.
Collecting, boiling.
Right. So there's collecting, boiling. There's drying, cracking, storing, and selling. So these are the basic steps. So we'd have a discussion as to what those steps are. And then at that point, we'd get into the question that, so what are their challenges in each of the steps? So what do you think what did you see and experience as some of the challenges that these women face? Because that's what we want to focus on, right, in terms of having an impact.
Getting enough wood.
Yep, so getting enough wood is a big one. Carrying heavy weights. Beg your pardon? Walking long distances. So essentially, we would go through and try and articulate for each step what are the different challenges that they face. And here's a sample of some of the things that a typical class might throw out. And then the question moves to, well, so if these are the challenges, then where do you want to focus and how do you want to, what do you want to do to create a different life for these women? And then you have some of the ideas that tend to come up. For example, if you look at that first image, you have to bend down to pick up the shea fruit, which is backbreaking, and maybe there's a device we could give to make it easier to pick it up without having to bend, or, as you said, carrying heavy weights over long distances, maybe something with a wheel, like a wheelbarrow, which can help them move the products that they collect to their villages. So at this point, once we've articulated the challenges and potential ways in which they could be addressed, we would move to a discussion of, we'd look to see what Nafaso has done to create an impact. Okay, so how are they thinking about impacting the lives of women? And so we're going to go back to Ghana. And again, to remind you, your role is that of the sustainability manager, and you're going to be looking to see how this initial program that was created can be further improved. Okay? During this session, there'll be an added wrinkle, which is you'll be asked to make some decisions and answer some questions. Don't put on your headsets yet, please. To do that, what you need to do is you saw the blue dot, right, on your screen? So you point the blue dot at the answer that you wish to provide, and then press this white button to confirm that that's your response, okay? So remember, blue dot, focus it on the response you want to give, press the white button, okay? So we're now going to head back again to Ghana. First, put on the earphones, around the necks, earphones around the necks. Then put on the headsets. And once you've got the headset adjusted, put on the earphones. And I see pretty much all of you are ready to go to Ghana, so let's go there. right, so moving along. What I have here is a typical distribution that we get when we do this in an INSEAD environment, and actually your group isn't far off. 14 out of the 30 of you chose relationship building. So that's pretty much spot on to the typical response. And what this allows us to do at this stage is to open up a discussion saying, well, why did you choose relationship segment? Why did the largest percentage choose the relationship segment? And what did you take away from having viewed that experience? So can I hear from about half the group went through that experience. So why did you choose the relationship? Yeah.
I thought trust building was the most interesting. Complex.
Right. So it's more complex, and trust is fundamental to making this program work. Very good. How about somebody who chose the financial capabilities? Yeah.
I get the impression there was already trust building done, and these are farmers, so I'm sure that we'll let you off the top. What do you offer us now, right?
Okay.
Concretely. Great. So that's why I chose financial.
Okay. And what were some of the key things you took away from that experience?
In which way? In choosing financial capabilities?
Yeah. So you.
Well, I actually I had made the right choice. That was the next step.
Okay. And how about the folks who went with quality training? Yeah.
I chose quality training because I felt that was the most important, and through quality training that would actually build the relationship. You can't build a relationship just because you're building a relationship, but if you show them how to do things in a better way, they say, okay, and that is the first step towards building a relationship. And if they get quality training and they see the financial results from that, that again will build the trust. So I think the training, showing them how to do things differently, how to do things in a better way is the first choice.
So these are all, important and related things, and so, one reinforces the other. And so we have a discussion about why did you choose it, what were the aspects we could drill down deeper, because you also answered these questions. For example, what does AAK gain in terms of value from doing all this, and then what are the specific aspects that might create that value. So this discussion then leads us to making a couple of important points around the learning experience. So because you chose a particular aspect of the program to view, obviously you came from a perspective that made you think that, look, this is important because I need to build trust, or, hello, without quality training, how do you... So you buy into a particular perspective, and what's very different from a typical case experience is that in a typical case experience, you see the whole story, and then we might in class say, okay, now imagine that, you're going to support the relationship part, what is your thinking? But it's more artificial. Here you made the choice, you bought into it, and you're more like the typical manager who's bought into their viewpoint. So if you come from business development, then you would have one headspace. If you're coming from sustainability, then your mindset would be completely different, and it allows you to have a more realistic discussion, for the want of a better way to frame it, around the dilemmas that are being discussed in the room. And of course, the data from your responses then allows us to think more deeply about why you did what you did and what you think are the takeaways. So the program started in 2009, and we showed you how the person who went into West Africa to think about what to do, what he came up with. We've then seen what happened. And now we're in 2017, and the program has actually started growing. There are 40,000 women in Ghana alone who are part of the Kolo Nafaso program, and the program has gained traction amongst the women. Before, it was Kolo Nafaso going to the villages and saying, will you join my program? But today, it's in 2017, women coming to Kolo Nafaso and saying, hey, when are you coming to my village? Okay, and so that has shifted. But there's a challenge. Kolo Nafaso, AAK hasn't quite, at this point, figured out how do you get customers to pay a premium price for Shea products that are from the Kolo Nafaso program, because it comes with higher costs because of all the hand-holding and so on and so forth that the organization has to do. And the C-suite's position is that, look, you know, we've done this. To grow this, we need to have a business solution from here on out. And so the question that I would ask in the classroom is, what would you do to attract customers to the Kolo Nafaso program who would, so that they are willing to pay a higher price? Yeah. Better quality products. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. So maybe do something like certification. Yeah.
Quantifiable impact that AAK could sell then onto its customers.
Okay. Quantify impact. And so there's a variety of responses that we can generate in the classroom. So certification is certainly one of them that came up the last time I used this session. There's a discussion sometime about, well, can we cut costs and so on and so forth. And at this stage, typically in the classroom, I would show a VR experience on scaling up and have a similar discussion. But today, given that we have a very limited amount of time, I'm going to skip that segment, and we're going to experience what happened with the Kolo Nafaso program. So what has been the program's impact? Because I think it's important to understand that, and because it's been a very successful program. So now we're going back to Ghana. So back with your earphones around your neck first. Then please put on your headsets. Then the earphones on after the headsets are on. And let us now head to Ghana. right, welcome back from Ghana again. So you made a choice of where you were going to invest, and you know, this typically happens in an MBA classroom, but you guys were much more even. Okay, so your distribution is more or less 10 per group. A category. So let me ask you, why, you know, anybody, stakeholders, what made you invest more on stakeholders? Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't need to say stakeholders. I can start there with market.
All right.
The other side of the coin, in the first video, we have the women producers. There's obviously two sides to the video, so have to focus there, or else I'll take probably pass very long.
Okay. Okay. How about somebody for, yes?
I said community because I feel beyond the financial empowerment that the women have, there's still a lot of basics that need to be covered. Look at how the woman was sweeping. There are some facilities that they would need even at that level beyond what they can do with the money.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else who wants to jump in and talk about stakeholders? Yeah.
Yeah, my thinking was about tapping and capture the buckets of efficiencies and profits along the value chain. And that means you need to talk and involve everyone. And that's also linked to the premium pricing, the quality. So I thought that's a holistic concept which is worth looking at and has direct impact. The market for me was a bit too far at that point, maybe at a later stage.
So we have this discussion, bunch of stuff comes up. We did discuss how we could measure additional aspects that are, for example, not measured currently in terms of impact. And at that point, we transitioned to say, well, what's the situation now? And the Kolo Nafaso program today is present in 3 countries, Burkina Faso, Ghana, and Ivory Coast. It has around 300,000 women participating in it. That's about 7.5% of the total population of women collectors of shea. And in Ghana, there's 100,000 women who are participating, covering 1,800 villages. It's supported by over 100 extension officers, 24 bush warehouses, 46 trucks, 50 drivers, and 15 mechanics. So a very large, so it's also generating employment. The product is now traceable to the village group, okay? And global businesses are now jumping in with participating in this program and buying the Kolo Nafaso products at a premium price. When we think about impact, we can think about the women, we can think about AAK's customers, and we can think about AAK. Yes, I didn't. And let me invite Mr. Westman to come up now and maybe share your thoughts on what you think has been the impact of the program, and then maybe I can jump in and say a few things about my personal experience from when I went to West Africa in the process of developing this.
Is this one on? Yeah.
Thanks. So
Yeah.
this is about your company.
Yeah.
You see how we tell the story. What are you the most proud of as part of that program?
Well, thank you.
What's your impact?
Yeah, I must admit, and I might be a bit, more personal than I normally am, right? But I've been there. I get goosebumps when I see these movies again. But we're in business, right? And I'm a CEO for a listed company, and we all know what that means for quarterly results. What makes me proud in this one is the scale of it. Think about 350,000 women, 4,000 villages. Our extension officers travel by moped in rainy roads. It's not even roads, right? So there's a huge effort to be there in a very difficult environment, but it's not a charity program. It's not an NGO program. It's part of our day-to-day business. as you saw. So this is actually significant volume. I get weekly updates in the sourcing season. How much did we buy from the women program? How much did we buy from conventional programs? And then it stacks up, and I know what that means for how we need to process and then sell to our customers. So this is completely part of our running business. And that, in a sense, if you want to be a bit philosophical, what is sustainable? Nothing is sustainable if it's temporary. So I think that is probably what makes me most proud. I know we make impact, but the sustainability part comes because it's an important part of the running business and it reaches consumers across the world. And really, when you see shea butter on a skincare product, it might come from these women. If you eat a chocolate bar, this product is used to replace cocoa butter in chocolate. So anywhere in the world, if you eat a snack bar, chocolate bar, confectionery, it might be shea from these women.
Yeah, so that's why we take these kind of cases in the classroom, because it does make business sense, right?
Yes, it does.
In a way. And then it also contributes, as we see, to, contributing to their livelihoods directly. Now, what are the key challenges that you've been facing in scaling? Because it's always this issue of scaling, right? And the cost that comes with that scaling for the company. So what are the main challenges that you have been facing in scaling the program?
Fantastic question. The evident operational challenge is to reach the villages, negotiate with the tribe leaders and so forth. But honestly, that is secondary. What makes me sad and angry is that we reached 350,000. We might need to scale back, but we're going to continue. But what is the real challenge is that there is war ongoing. There is terrorist attacks. It's a the political stability is so tough, which means that it's very difficult for me to ask, let's say, an expat to travel down and scale it from a business perspective. We need to work with localization, with people that live in these countries that are okay, call it, with the extreme sad risks, and with that try to scale it. But it's still very difficult, and you come to the dilemmas, right? What happens if there is a terrorist attack in these villages or at the borders and so forth? And one could say, yeah, but these people chose to do this and there was no better job than maybe to work for AK. But it's kind of all this, so it would be so easy to just walk away. But we really try to be there. But this is a tough one, and I am a bit nervous every day.
Well, I mean, sorry, I know we didn't prepare that like that, but when I'm listening to you, does it mean that your job as a CEO also for this kind of issues has to become more political, that you need to discuss with political leaders and public leaders as well? Or I'm just curious to see how do you effectively deal with that as a CEO, because you have to make these choices. Is that okay for me to be personal?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yes, you should argue that, Johan, why don't you engage with, look at all those countries, and then you can ask yourself, what's the likelihood of a Swedish guy, CEO for, it's a couple of billions, right, that we sell for $5 billion a year, but what's the likelihood of me changing the political system, the political instability and so forth, right? We're not going to give you up. We're going to raise the voice, but the way to make impact is to still be on the ground, find ways to still operating, because it's so difficult being one company to impact the politicians or the leaders, right? So that's just a tough challenge we have. I don't think I should spend the time meeting all the country leaders and so forth, but we need to raise our voice, we need to raise the awareness here at the WEF, but what we can do is find ways to stay local.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think, Amitava, I cut you short also, but we wanted to talk also about how this has changed the relationship of AAK with its customers, right? So Amitava, do you want to say a few words, because I cut you out of that slide, I think.
So the one example that I was going to use is this example of Beiersdorf and the Nivea cream lip balm that you see up on the screen here. So Beiersdorf has become one of the customers, global customers of AAK's Kolo Nafaso products, and 3 employees were so impressed by what the company is doing in Ghana and Burkina Faso and so on, that they decided to create a lip balm on their own time, convinced Beiersdorf to sell it in Germany, and €1 from the sale of each lip balm is going back to the program. And so think of this, the impact that it has in these ways like reducing churn. I mean, these employees obviously now feel much more connected to Beiersdorf than they did when it was just the commercial stuff that was being bought. So there's a real win from the customer side in sort of becoming a part of this sustainability movement.
Yeah, thanks. Of course, we don't want to make that just a promotional thing for the company, right? So I'm going to ask you the same question also. How has that clearly changed your relationship to your customers? And what have been the challenge there as well? Because we saw also that that raises the price. So then comes the question of who should pay. So could you tell us about that? Because that's also a complex one to do, right?
It is, and I think if I answer the last one, who's going to pay? I believe in, the sustainability of anything is like living with market economy, consumers, demand, and so forth. Try to make the right thing to be the right thing, right? And eventually someone is going to pay. The relationship we have gotten through this is, of course, that the customers that engage in this and believe in this, and I think most of you would say that it's kind of a special story. The ones that really taps into it, wants to learn more, they get a bit hooked, right? And we have many customers where the owners, the top management, even owner families, depending on what the customer is, wants to travel down, wants to visit, and we got to balance the security issues. But when they come back, they are more convinced than before. But let me also share, and just being honest, and this is the real world we live in, we could probably scale this even more. There could be more impact, but you come into things like, okay, if there is no certification, if there is no label, if the consumer goods companies cannot put it on the product, they might not choose this. So it comes in, and where I go like, yeah, but this is more sustainable than some of the other things with the label. Yeah, but we live in a market economy. So we have chosen not to go the certification route, not to go to some of the other things that you can put on a label, and just continue to do this. Right, wrong, I don't know, but some customers choose not to because they can't put it on the label.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I have plenty of questions, but I want to make sure you ask yours. Yes, sir.
So in terms of the overall value chain, how much of the value is captured by the women, and how much of the value chain is captured by AAK? And we sort of, I guess, a follow-up to that question, why not produce product locally and export the product, because you're exporting the raw material and adding most of the value, in closer to the, I guess, to the consumer market.
That's a great question, and believe me that during my tenure in AK, we have been looking at investing locally, and we still are, but that comes into the stability of the environment where we operate, right? So spending money on new factories, greenfield in that area is much more risky business than we have an installed asset in Denmark that we have been operating for many years. So that becomes like a trade-off. But if we were to invest there, we would still process it locally and then ship the oil around the world. So where we ship to are the producers of chocolate confectionery, the producers of skincare products. So I think it's a fair question, and of course, in a bit of a fair situation, you want to keep as much value as possible locally, but at the same time you got to respect the process it takes. So after it's been sold as a kernel, someone has to crush it, someone has to refine the oil and make it into an ingredient, and that would typically be an AAK or someone else, right? So of course an asset could be operating in Ghana and you would keep some of the benefits there, but the price for the kernel needs to come from the pull of this ingredient.
And the question might be also different if you went at a B2B, right? I think it was that B2C. I think it might be a different, maybe a different potential for keeping the value chain shorter and more local. Maybe I don't know. It's not.
I think it's a relevant. I think it's a relevant question. But being honest about, why wouldn't you just plow in money into this region? Well, terrorist attacks, instability, and so forth. We got to weigh that.
Sir.
I think an increasingly important question, particularly from a marketing point of view, is the willingness or the increasing willingness of consumers to pay more for a product if they can be shown that there is a value to them. In other words, in this particular case, it would be sustainability, a more stable world, socially, politically perhaps. All these things might come into the mind, but the point is that do you perceive that consumers, there may be a change in attitude, and the consumers are now increasingly willing to actually pay a little more for these social returns?
Do I dare to be super straightforward?
Yes.
Yes, a slight movement. Right, there are parts of the population in the world where you make a stronger commitment to do that. Yes, and we see that in anything from plant-based food to etc. Right, some are willing to make an extra effort, monetary-wise or so, but the vast majority of the world's population is not making that choice. You buy what you like, you look at prices at shelf in retail, and in a huge part of the world we can't afford really food, right? Affordability is a key thing. So I think it's moving, but I think we're far from saying that people would pay a premium. I'm not so sure they should. It should be really a pull system where consumer goods companies and us make a better product, make it more sustainable and more sustainable, and eventually I think a total food system, we need policymakers to get in there to make it visible, CO2 impact, the price of CO2 and methane and what have you on the shelf, so that consumers are tempted to buy the right product because it's good and cheaper. That I think would make a change.
And in this case, maybe not just the CO2 emission of the product, but also the, how the value is being distributed across the value chain, and whether or not it increases livelihoods of people who live on less than $1 a day. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. But it becomes a bit more difficult to be. How do you tell that story on a label on the shelf, right? That's the challenge.
Exactly.
Sorry, I'm not on the right side. Being a B2B business, and I suspect you have many European clients that are now subject to regulations around due diligence along the whole value chain. This program clearly is, you've mentioned the products are fully traceable down to the collectors. What are you doing on the rest of the products? I suspect your customers will be happy to pay a bit higher to have that traceability, I would expect. But what's happening on the other side, on where this program is not built? Are you able to trace information around that?
Just want to ask, it's a EUDR question on other raw materials. Are you okay with me answering that? Or
yes, we are.
Okay.
I'm the one giving permission.
So EUDR is about things we bring into Europe and the traceability of that. It has a huge impact. The short question to, are people willing to pay? Most companies are not willing to pay. Most consumers are not willing to pay unless you have to, right? So I think it's worth remembering, right? So it's not like people are eager, let's spend more, let's spend more. This is regulation and we have to deal with it. The EUDR has a good intention. Stop deforestation. We have that commitment by 2025. The sad thing here is that the implementation is asking us as a company to prove with geolocators every single plot where we source, for example, palm oil or other product, which means that I will send 100,000 to 300,000 geolocation points per ship that we bring into the Netherlands or Sweden, where I could technically, which we do, invest in satellite monitoring. Why couldn't I just send one photo and show there's no deforestation here? So EU, we got to be careful. So I'm going to engage more with policymakers for sure, because some of the implementation tools they are implementing now is going to be counterproductive and it's going to make food more expensive. But the intention is right.
Yes, please. Oh, sorry, you're coming next. You're next.
Yeah, kind of to put this into context, how large a proportion of your sourcing comes from the the farmers inside this scheme, and then kind of as also manage myself, what other type of effects has this program had? Do you get like lower cost of capital, or do you get other bonus effects from being a more sustainable company maybe than your peers?
Yeah, I think the greatest, and to let you know what I clicked was a ESG reputation and financial benefits. I mean that's what we get, honestly. But what we are generating, right? So we don't necessarily get an extra. We don't get better working capital because we do microfinance. We pay 1 year in advance. So we pay 1 year in advance, and then build on the trust, which was discussed, we get almost no losses. The women come back and sell to us. So what we really gain is that for us feeling good about the fact that we make impact, we know from studies that the women feel that they learn about doing business, take care of themselves, typically spend are allowed, and let's remember, this is a quite male-dominated culture with tribe leaders and husbands and so forth, but it's proven that this allows the women to have a bit more impact on what they spend, and can do it on schooling, on livestock, and so forth. So that is part of the sustainability story that helps build a credential story for AAK and making sure that we are on the right track. I think that's the loop that we're in.
Just to add a bit more, like, do your financiers credit you for this in any way?
I mean, the investor?
Yeah.
Yeah, do you get a lower back for it?
Not necessarily lower, but we've been able to go for green financing, if you will, and in the last piece of this, actually, just to show the full circle, we are now starting bio boilers in Denmark. So where we crush the shea kernels, you get the oil, and then you get the residue, a meal that we typically just left. Now we're going to burn the meal to generate the power for the plant to do the crushing, and we're going to reduce the CO2 from the plant by 90%. It's going to impact the Aarhus city by 5% standalone. So that just, to kind of close the loop. And I think the total scheme of this will make AAK a strong supplier to our customers, and that's where we get the benefit. But it's difficult to calculate the other things.
So you're not making it also to attract specific investors, right? Is that what I'm hearing you say? Are there conversations you have, in your board with the investors in terms of how far you're going with that type of project? Are there conversations happening?
Yeah, we do, but also we are a big company, so in order to scale this, we haven't needed to go for that kind of extreme, call it financing, please go with us in this and this and that. We've been able to fund it pretty much ourselves and through our normal financing. If we were to come to a point where we will build further assets in Ghana, let's say, yeah, then maybe we would leverage this. But what we have done is more build it into our total sustainability story, where honestly, the battle I fight more often is the wrong perception on palm oil, but that's a separate story.
That's not the, yeah, you can ask questions about it, but you had a question. Thanks for your patience.
I was just curious. I don't know Shea very well, but I know cocoa very well.
Yes.
And there's a lot of these sustainability challenges that actually should be tackled in the pre-competitive environment, child labor, deforestation.
Sure.
And I'm just wondering in Shea, because I hear a lot talking about the value chain but I'm wondering, how are you with your peers in the Shea industry? What is there on an industry level happening to tackle some of these sustainability challenges?
Yeah, so maybe bring it in total context, right? So for the industry, it's worthwhile knowing that a lot of the shea that we bring into us, we produce a product that is called cocoa butter equivalent. Mm-hmm. So in essence, our business is to replace cocoa butter. But our customers are the same, of course. They do. So there is a huge commitment in the industry to improve sustainability across the board. AAK is not active in cocoa per se, but our competitors and the customers are. With regards to shea per se, we, among others, we drive this. There's Fair for Life, there is the Kolo Nafaso. So there are a few programs where we are a few that stand up for this together. But the Kolo Nafaso is unique in a way. I don't know anyone that has been able to have 350,000 women included in the program. So that's where we are pioneers. We don't typically hook up yet really across industry on this one. I think that is a good next step. We have been so focused on running this as our program and scaling it rather than hooking arms.
Yeah. Thanks. You had a question next. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. That's all right. So speaking of hooking arms, obviously donors and development practitioners like in places like Ghana are investing quite a bit in things like shea production and smallholder farmer development. So
is that the industry you're coming from? Sorry,
so I work in the international development industry.
Okay.
On public-private partnerships between private companies and donors. So curious if that's been sort of an avenue that you've looked at, is partnering with major donors that are also co-investing in these value chains.
Yes, we are, and we have done. We've had a few programs, both from an R&D, but also customer/partnership programs. One recently launched, and you can read about that on our homepage. But that typically becomes even smaller scale. So that program was like 10,000. I think it was 10,000 women that we targeted in that program, where we 350,000 in total, right? So again, I think we can do much more, but we have been scaling this, and honestly, the challenge at the moment is the political instability or the risks associated with it, because we could accelerate more. We could go from country to country, but now we're actually being forced to move back because it's so risky. The red zone, as we follow it, is just creeping down on us. So the biggest challenge, the biggest thing I think we could do is find ways to create, one way or the other, a more stable environment for operating. We would invest more like this.
Amitava, what's your reaction to all this, by the way? Is it a different conversation? Typically, we don't have you in the classroom, unfortunately, which is why we're also taping this. Thank you for coming again, because we can bring these additional elements. Thank you very much for that. What are the typical questions that your students would have on that case in terms of how they can contribute and how that can change what they're going to do when they join a company after living in SEAD?
So I think that for the students, they don't have the depth of expertise that's reflected in this room quite clearly. And so the question, one question that came up here about the partitioning of, you know, who gets what part of the value, that does come up in the MBA classroom. But after that, what happens is, okay, so how can I, you know, I think there's a big element of shock in the sense that most of our students haven't gone to Africa. And you know, even for myself, growing up in India, when I went to Burkina Faso and Ghana to see the operations of Kolo Nafaso there, I mean, it was I was really taken aback. I mean, so thinking about our students who have mostly never left the first world, being immersed in this is a big shock, and it makes them think, okay, what can I do, and how should I think about my life going forward in terms of having an impact? And a goodly number of them actually start thinking about this. Yep. So I think that's the positive
It puts a face on what it is to have less than $1 a day and the struggle of it,
and
right?
I think maybe to add, I think we can ask those questions around the world for any product that we consume, any product. You could always make a case, why don't you pay more to someone? But one could also flip it around and say, yeah, but since it is part of a supply chain where someone is paying something at the end of it, it gets us a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better, and then you grow. And that is how most, you know, countries or part of the world has gone from poverty into something else. And I think that's another perspective to have. If you flip it around and it doesn't make sense, then it's going to die.
Yeah, definitely. So for people who've been here with us, but also for our students, if you had like a, you know, a key takeaway from you, a recommendation that you would want to leave everybody with in terms of starting this kind of program or pushing that agenda in everybody's organization, what would you say? What would you tell people to do to get started on that? Because everybody can do it in any type of organization, right?
Yeah, and I'll try to keep it short and very personal. No, because I came into AK as a CEO when this was already started, but I think it was like 50,000 when I came in, and you heard 350,000. So I've certainly supported the program. Why? For me, it was we make impact, but it's part of our day-to-day business. So my advice would be, you know, charity is good. It can help flip over philanthropy as well. I mean, there's many things that can help, but if you can make it stick in your day-to-day business, it becomes sustainable in a way, and that's our approach, and that's why we scaled it. We would probably not have scaled it this much if it felt and it was
wasn't core business.
If it in our P&L should look like, you know, it cost, we might have kept it, but we felt this we can scale, and it just moves into the business.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Amitava. Thanks for coming today. Thank you.
Thank you. Fantastic, by the way, to see your own business presented by someone else. I never seen those yet. So
oh, you hadn't seen them?
I haven't seen those yet. I've been in Ghana, yes, but this was fantastic.
That helped us, you know, not bring the students to Ghana.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Take a picture together here.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.